Good night, wanderer. You will not sleep yet, not tonight. You are crouched behind a rock, your fingers tight around a polished flint spear. The wind is cold on your cheek. You haven't blinked in a while. Out there, across the open slope, the gazelle stands, alone, stupid, waiting. It doesn't see you, but your bones are tired. Your breath is quiet, not because of focus, but because your soul feels old. You are 19, but your knees ache like the elders, and your spirit is heavier than the spear in your hand. Your father's voice in your head again. No rest for those who don't feed the fire. You were born in a world where men hunk and women grind seeds between stones, where the moon tells time and fire tells stories. But something inside you has already left. The gazelle runs. You don't chase it. Your cousin stares at you from the trees, angry. You shrug. You don't explain. You can't. You don't have words yet for what is happening inside. Later that night, as the tribe gathers around the fire, you stare at the flames. The heat feels like it wants to speak, but not with words, with roots, with stone, with permanence. You don't want to leave again tomorrow, not to chase deer, not to carry everything on your back. You want to stay, to sit, to plant, to build. The old woman beside you mutters, "The rivers are whispering." You nod. You've seen it. Down by the slow water, where the reeds grow tall, the earth splits open each season, spilling little green stalks without anyone asking. They call it wild barley. You call it a beginning. The next morning, you do something strange. You don't follow the men into the woods. You walk to the river, alone. You find a dry patch near the water, and you kneel. You press a seed into the earth. It doesn't feel like rebellion. It feels like memory. You don't speak to anyone about it, but each day you return. You bring more seeds. You try to shape the earth with your hands. You even move stones to stop the river from flooding your patch. Your sister laughs at you. The others watch from a distance. But no one stops you. Not yet. Days pass, then moons, then seasons. Your body changes, not into a warrior, but into something stranger. You are becoming rooted. And then, one night, it rains. The kind of rain that floods the world. Your shelter of reeds collapses. Your fire hisses and dies. But your patch, that tiny earth you held in your hands, is still there. And now, green shoots are pushing upward, dozens of them, like quiet voices that believed in you even when you didn't believe in yourself. The tribe returns from their long hunt. They see your field. They say nothing at first. Then they start to ask questions. They come closer. They taste the grain. Your father kneels beside the stalks and frowns. He whispers, "What have you done, child?" And for the first time, you answer honestly, "I'm tired of chasing. Let the world come to us." You do not know it yet, but in that moment, you have just become the first architect of something that will one day be called a city. And the gods are listening.
You don't sleep much now. Not because of fear, but because the nights feel alive. The moon hangs above your patch of barley, silver and swollen, watching like an eye that cannot close. The river has shrunk for the season, its water slow, warm, and brown. Flies dance above it like memories that no longer sting. Your hands are cracked, fingernails black with soil. Your arms shake each morning, but your back grows stronger. Not like a hunter's, like a builder's. One morning, your sister brings you a gift, a flat piece of clay, half dried in the sun. No reason, just a scrap. You stare at it too long. And then, slowly, you press your fingertip into it. Just once, a small dent, a mark. It feels final, but also like the start of something. You don't know why, but you keep going. A swirl, a line, 2 dots. Your name? A wish? The clay is warm, almost like flesh. It feels like it remembers you, even when no one else does. That night, you don't return to the tribe's fire. You stay at the edge of your patch with a second piece of clay and a broken stick. You carve symbols. You don't know what they mean, but they mean everything. And the next morning, when your sister asks what it is, you whisper, "This is for the days we forget." Later, a storm comes, the kind that used to make you run, but this time you don't. You dig, you pile stones, you cut reeds and shape them into walls. Not strong walls, not yet, but yours. Your cousin mocks you again. He still runs with the hunters, still throws spears, eats raw meat, laughs like the world is a game. But sometimes you catch him watching your roof, your fire, your grain jars. He doesn't laugh as loud now. One by one, others come, not to help, just to watch. A woman brings a clay pot. A boy brings dried fish. A girl sits beside you, silent, and copies your strange marks in the mud. No one says it, but the center of the world has shifted. The hunters still run, but some, just a few, now stay. They build, they shape, they settle. Your reed hut becomes a row of huts. Your patch becomes a field. Your marks become a kind of map. You build a flat stone hearth, then a channel for water, then a storage pit, and then... One morning, you wake and realize you are no longer alone. There are 12 of you, living here, sleeping here, eating food you planted, burning fire you built. A tribe within a tribe, still nameless, still unsure, but rooted. And one night, the old woman comes, the one who once said, "The rivers are whispering." She walks your rows, she touches your jars, she sees the strange symbols on your clay. Then she looks at you and says, "The earth remembers now." You don't speak, but your eyes sting. Because somehow, you always feared that nothing you did would ever matter. And now, the clay remembers. It starts with a scream. Short, far away, but enough. You freeze at the edge of the field, a bundle of wet grain in your arms. Others look up too. You're not imagining it. The sound came from the North Trail. A boy runs toward the huts, his face pale, his mouth wide. No words, only breath. Behind him, dust, and then nothing. But it's enough. That night, No one sleeps. You sit by your tiny hearth, the flame low, your back pressed to a wall of woven reeds. You built this hut. You know how soft it is. You also know how easy it would be for someone with a knife to walk in and take everything, including the firelight in your chest. At dawn, people gather without speaking. There are no leaders here, no council, no king, just eyes, wide and sleepless, and breath, shared like a prayer. Finally, you say it. We need a wall. At first, silence, then a scoff, then a nod, then a dozen hands picking up branches, stones, reeds, whatever they can carry. No one is skilled. No one knows what a wall should be, but you begin anyway. Not because it's perfect, because it's needed. You start by digging a line. It curves naturally, like the bend of the river. Your fingers bleed, but others copy you. A girl sings softly as she piles mud. An old man sharpens stakes as if sharpening his memories. Your hands know what to do before your mind does. They are remembering something older than speech. And by the third day, the wall stands waist high. Not tall enough to stop anything, really, but visible. A line between inside and out, between us and them. The old hunters return from the hills. They stare at the wall like it's an insult. You're building cages, one spits. We are not animals. But their voices shake, because they see it too. The outside world is changing, and running is no longer enough. That night, a stranger appears by the edge of your settlement. He does not approach. He does not speak. He watches, and vanishes by morning. You double the wall's height, add wooden stakes, set fire pits near the corners. You carve your strange symbols on the outer gate. A warning? A prayer? You don't know, but it feels right. And when the next group arrives, a family of 7, barefoot, wide-eyed, with only ashes in their stories, you let them in. They cry, they kneel, they call this place safe. You hate that word, because now you carry it. Each night you sit by the fire, watching the gate. Even in sleep, your body leans toward the wall, as if your bones have sworn an oath. And soon the huts change shape. The paths between them straighten. People start to speak of rules, of borders, of our grain. One morning, 2 men argue over a pot of barley. It ends in fists, then blood. And for the first time, you speak not as builder, but as judge. You say, he gives half the pot, the other keeps the fire. They grumble, but obey. And just like that, law is born. The wall, the grain, the flame, the voice, they all begin to weave together. A structure, a shape, a city. Not in stone, not yet, but in the minds of those who stay. You wake up and realize you no longer live in a hut. You live in an idea.
There are too many now. Too many huts. Too many fires. Too many voices asking what comes next. You do not answer quickly anymore. You wait. You listen. But the questions keep coming, and they are no longer about walls or huts or even grain. They are about rain and drought and death. A child dies in the night, fever. His mother wails like an open wound. The next morning, she brings his blanket and lays it at the foot of your door.
She says nothing. You don't know what to do with grief that has no words, so you bury it in silence. The people begin gathering in your fields at dawn. They kneel, not to you, to the green, to the stalks of wheat that sway without wind, to the quiet that fills their hunger. They whisper strange things. The grain is alive. It listens. It wants. You try to stop it. You say the truth, that the soil is good, that the river feeds, that your hands are tired. But they look at you the way a blind man stares toward the sun, not at it, through it. One night, a young woman paints her face with ash, wraps her arms in twine, and stands in the middle of the field. She calls out, not to you, but to the seed, to he who lives beneath. She pours water onto the soil, then wine, then blood from a shallow cut on her palm, and the people fall silent. You feel it in your bones, a shift, a new hunger, not for food, for meaning. The next morning, they build a ring of stones. They mark it with the first symbol you ever carved in clay. They call it the name of the god. You don't remember what it meant when you wrote it. They ask you to speak for him. You say no. The next day, they bring barley, fish, honey. They ask again. You say no. The third day, they bring their children. They ask, what does he want from us? And you don't know. So you look to the field, to the stalks swaying like prayers, and you whisper, he wants you to stay, to care, to remember. They nod, they bow, and that night the fire at the stone ring burns higher than your own. You sit alone by the edge of the wall, and you ask yourself, is this what gods are? Not thunder, not sky, just something we fear losing so much that we give it a name and kneel. A child brings you a jar of honey. He says, for the god, for you. You smile, but your chest feels hollow, because you remember when the seed was just a seed, and the clay was just for keeping memories, not for writing commands. But now the field is holy, the stone ring is a temple, and you have become something you don't understand.
The sun is wrong. It rises too fast now, burns too high, lingers too long. The earth, dry, cracked, resentful. Your barley withers at the edges. The river shrinks to a whisper. The people call it a season. You feel it is something else. Each day, more eyes turn to you, not with trust, but with expectation. You do not eat much anymore, not because of sacrifice, but because your stomach curls with fear. One morning, a boy runs through the huts. His voice is sharp, breathless. The west field is gone. You already knew, but hearing it aloud makes your knees weak. A council gathers. You never called for one, but still they come. Farmers, mothers, warriors. The girl who sang while shaping mud walls. The old man who once scoffed at gods. They sit in silence. You stand. You speak of heat, of seasons, of patience. They listen, but their eyes flick toward the stone circle, toward the seed's ring. Someone says, maybe he's angry. Another, maybe we forgot something. Pause. You feel it coming. A tide, a storm, not of water, but of belief. Pause. That night, a fire breaks out in the outer fields. No one started it, or so they say, but the grain is gone. The smoke crawls across the sky like a silent scream. Pause. People come to your hut. They do not knock. They kneel. They whisper. Speak to him. Tell him we are sorry. Ask him what he wants. Pause. You close your eyes. You wait for a voice, a sign, a dream. But nothing comes. Only silence. And your own heartbeat, cold and loud. Pause. You rise. You walk to the circle. You step inside. The people gasp. They've never seen anyone do that. You stand at the center, barefoot on scorched soil. Your mouth opens, and you lie. Pause. You say, he is not angry. He is testing us. He wants your faith, not your fear. He says, plant again. Pause. No one speaks. Then someone claps. Another cries. Someone chants your name. Pause. You bow your head, not in reverence, but in shame. Because you know what they don't. The earth is broken. The rain has fled. And this time, belief won't bring water. Pause. But they need something, anything. And so, you give them the only thing left. Hope. Pause. The next day they dig again, plant again, pray harder. And you carve new symbols in the temple stone, symbols of endurance, symbols of reward. You make the God say what you can't. Pause. In time, a few green shoots return, enough to silence doubt. The God is pleased, they say. He forgives. Pause. But you know the truth. You saw the fire first. You know the smoke still sleeps beneath the soil. Pause. And that now you are not just a builder or a leader or a voice. You are the mouth of a lie that feeds the living. Pause. And somehow that lie feels holier than truth.
Your hands are not what they were. The knuckles swell in the cold. The fingertips crack. The grip you once used to dig canals now trembles when lifting a cup. You speak less. The people listen more. Somehow, that's what power becomes. Not sound, but silence people don't interrupt. But one voice still speaks around you, soft, high, nervous. Your son. Pause. He is not like you. He does not shape clay into walls. He does not lead or plant or command. He listens, he watches, and he writes. At first, you don't understand it. His little obsession with wet clay and sharpened reed. He kneels beside the hearth, scratching tiny marks into tablets, then scraping them away. Again and again. Until one night, he stops erasing. He hands you a tablet, still warm. It reads, "Today, the temple gave 42 jars of barley to the southern huts." You blink. It's nothing. And yet, it's everything. Pause. No argument, no memory games, no gossip, just truth pressed into clay. Pause. You hold it like it's alive, and you whisper, "He remembers for all of us." Pause. Soon others bring him news, grain weights, trade tallies, marriage agreements. And slowly a new shape begins to grow beneath your city. Not a wall, not a temple, but a record. a memory that cannot lie. Pause. You build a room for him, simple stone, a bench, a jar of reeds. He calls it the tablet house. It smells of wet earth, lamp oil, and secrets. Pause. The people start to fear him a little. They know his hands can trap their words. You teach him discretion, but he already knows. Pause. One day, a woman comes to him, trembling. She whispers, "My husband beat me. He says I am his to break." Your son listens. He writes. And for the first time, a law is pressed into clay. No man shall strike a woman without cause. If he does, he gives 1/3 his grain. It spreads like fire. Pause. A man protests. He shouts in the square. But your son remains calm. He holds up the tablet. And the people look not at the man, but at the clay. Because now, truth has a shape. Pause. You watch him from your doorway. His fingers stained with red dust. His eyes tired. His back straight. He does not raise his voice. He does not lead. And yet, he is followed. Pause. One night, he brings you a tablet. On it, a list. Names, dates, weights, laws. At the bottom, a small symbol, one you don't recognize. You ask him what it means. He says, "It's mine, my mark." You nod and feel something shift. You were the first to build, the first to shape earth into walls. But he shapes silence into permanence. Pause. And in the stillness of the tablet house, among rows of clay that no wind can erase, the city becomes something more. Not just a place of fire, not just a place of prayer, but a place that remembers.
It was always the river. Not the gods, not the walls, not even you. The river gave life when it rose, and death when it refused. You always knew this. But now the river has changed. It doesn't flood like before. Its song is slower, shallower. Your eastern fields crack under the sun. The canals are thirsty, and so are the people. Your son brings you news. They've built a channel, he says, from the upper bend. They're redirecting the flow. You look up slowly. Who? He hesitates. Carrot, the hill village. You remember them. Fisher folk, humble, once your guests during the famine. You gave them salt. They gave you songs. Now they take your water. The council gathers at dusk. The stone temple glows orange. The walls echo with quiet rage. A farmer shouts, "They steal what is ours." A priestess hisses, "If the God is silent, we must not be." Your son remains silent, but his fingers trace symbols on the table, a habit he doesn't notice anymore. They look to you. You say, "Send a message." Not a threat, not yet, just words. The message goes. 3 clay tablets, written with care. You drink from what we all dig. Return the flow and we share. Refuse and we act. Days pass. The river stays dry. Their answer comes not in clay, but in blood. A scout from your fields, dragged home by the ankles, throat split. No words now, no meetings, just fire in the chest, old spears pulled from under beds, stone-tipped arrows rubbed with oil, and silence, louder than any war drum. You do not lead the charge, but they wait for your nod, and when you give it, something in you breaks. The battle is not a battle, it is a scream, a chase, a reckoning. Your people descend upon Kerit like a river no wall can stop. When it ends, the fields are black, the channels are yours again, but so are the bodies. Too many, too young, some with faces you remember from festivals long ago. That night, your son places a new tablet on the altar. The script is tight, final. Let it be recorded. For water, the city killed. You tell him to erase it. He refuses. So you take the tablet. You walk to the river. You press it into the mud, face down. But he carves a second one and hides it among the others, because now truth multiplies. The people return to work. The water flows again, but no one sings. Even the God in the temple feels quiet. And you dream of water that runs red. Weeks later, a delegation arrives from the west. They do not ask about gods. They do not kneel. They say, "We want peace, but we want a share." And so, the first treaty is written. 3 seals, 2 sacks of grain, 1 new canal. They call it diplomacy, but you know what it really is. A river's deal, made in silence, paid in blood.
A man drags another through the square by the hair. Blood on his knuckles, dust on his chest, eyes full of fire. The other, barely conscious, mouth broken, hands tied with reed rope. The crowd follows, quiet. Your son is already there, his tablet in hand. The man shouts, "He took from my jar! I saw him with my child's bread in his hand." A few nod. One woman weeps. But others look unsure, because hunger makes fingers twitch, and justice, when raw, looks too much like revenge. They call for you. You do not want to go. Your knees ache. Your thoughts are slow. But you walk. The crowd parts. The men stop breathing. You stand between them. One bruised, one boiling, both human. You ask questions, simple ones. Was he hungry? Was the jar sealed? Did you strike before speaking? They answer, haltingly, defensively. But the truth isn't in their words. It's in their eyes, their silences. You sigh. And then you turn to your son. You nod. He presses reed to clay, and a sentence is born. If a man steals from need, he repays double, but shall not bleed. The crowd shifts. Someone murmurs, a just word. Another echoes, clay does not lie. You feel it in your chest, a heaviness lifting. Not because it's perfect, but because it's no longer personal. It's principle. In the weeks that follow, more disputes come. A fence broken, a goat killed, a daughter struck. Each one becomes a question, and each question finds its answer in clay. Soon, the tablet house grows, not with grain, but with judgment. Shelves line the walls, each holds decisions, some harsh, some kind, all final. One day, your son shows you a new tablet. It is different, not a verdict, but a list. Standard measures, weights for grain, value of one day's labor. You raise an eyebrow, he shrugs. Fairness begins before conflict. The people begin using them. A merchant weighs fish on a balance. A farmer counts seed by measure. A woman trades cloth for dried figs without raising her voice, because now they agree on what is enough. And in that strange, quiet harmony, you feel something new take root. Not fear, not obedience, but trust. You visit the tablet house at night, alone. The oil lamp burns low. The shelves breathe in silence. You run your hand along a row of rulings. Your fingertips trail the ridges of justice. You stop at one, the first, the stolen bread. You whisper, I would have punished harder. From behind you, your son says, then he would have starved harder. You nod, but say nothing, because now your voice is not the final one. The clay speaks louder, and in it the people find their order. And you begin to disappear from the center, not from respect, but because the law has replaced you. And that, you realize, is what true leadership was meant to be. Temporary.
It begins with a shadow, one that shouldn't be there. At sunrise, the old stone ring at the center of the city casts a long, narrow shape that points straight to the river. Someone notices. Then everyone does. They call it an omen. You call it timing. A young priestess steps forward, painted hands, dusted hair, voice trembling like wind in reeds. She says, the god has chosen his direction. And in that moment, no one laughs. Later, the council meets. They speak of signs, dreams, divine precision. But you know what they really want: a temple. Not a ring, not a stone, not a shrine of branches tied with twine. A mountain made by hands, a stairway for prayers, a house that looks upward even when people look down. You do not oppose it. You only ask, how high? They say, high enough to be seen from the horizon. You nod, but inside you feel afraid. Because once gods have walls, they also have doors. And once they have doors, someone decides who may enter. Construction begins before the next moon. Clay bricks, laid one by hands blistered in singing. The lower levels are plain, but each layer rises with more decoration. Shells, paint, fire tiles. The symbol of the god, your old symbol, carved into every corner. And at the very top, a small chamber, with no roof, only sky. The people call it the breath room. They say that's where the god listens. You climb it once, only once. The steps are steep. Your legs burn. The air changes as you rise, thinner, quieter, like sound itself is hesitant. At the top, you kneel. You whisper nothing. And still, it feels heard. When you descend, you do not speak. Your son asks what you felt. You say, small. He smiles, good. The temple changes the city, not just in shape, but in rhythm. People begin organizing their days around it. Prayers at sunrise, offerings at dusk, chants echoing across rooftops. New jobs appear: flame keepers, prayer leaders, ritual dancers. The god becomes real, not in your heart, but in their habits. And then someone asks a question. If the god lives here now, who speaks for him? All heads turn to you. But you shake your head. Your time is clay, fields, law. The sky belongs to others. The priestess steps forward. She has a voice like wet silk. She says, I will listen. And she does. Her rituals are strange, her words poetic, and people love her. Soon, decisions are made without you. Temple grain is redistributed, festivals planned,
New holidays appear. Your son records them all, without judgment, without comment, just ink and silence. And you return to the river. You walk the canals, feel the silt between your toes, watch young boys drag baskets of clay as if it were gold. The temple rises in the background, taller than the walls you once built, its top lost in cloud and smoke. The God no longer needs your voice. He has a home. And the people, they have a new place to aim their fear, their hope, their hunger, not at you, but at the sky.
He arrives at dawn, alone. No cart, no gifts, only dust on his cloak and a silence you don't yet understand. He doesn't kneel, doesn't touch the temple stone, doesn't ask for your God's name. He looks at your walls, your fields, your people, and then he smiles, not in reverence, in recognition. At the gate, the guards hesitate. He says something, but not in your language. It sounds like cracked stone, fast, sharp, like river rocks skipping across water. Your son, standing nearby, listens carefully and answers, clumsily. The stranger laughs, not cruelly, like a teacher hearing his student mispronounce something ancient. Later, they sit together. The stranger speaks. Your son translates. The council gathers. You arrive last. He says his name is Ashan, that he comes from the north, from a place called Eshentel, where houses are built with wood, and gods wear different faces. He says he has seen other cities, many, some greater than yours, some burned to the ground. He says your city has potential, that its walls are clean, its laws precise. And then he says this, but it is alone. The council stirs. Your priestess frowns. Your son raises one eyebrow. You ask, what do you mean? Ashan smiles and replies, a city is a flame, but an empire is the wind. You sit with this for a long time. The others debate, speculate, predict. But you listen, because you've seen it before, in the fields, in the river, in the temple. The pattern. First comes need, then comes law, then comes voice, and now comes ambition. Ashan proposes a treaty. He wants trade, shared scouts, shared language. He offers scribes, tools, routes. He speaks of copper mines, of river maps, of peoples who do not yet kneel to any god. He says, together we can show them order. You ask, whose order? Ashan pauses, then bows his head slightly. Yours at first, but soon ours. That night you walk along the outer wall. The wind is cold. The stars feel farther. Your son joins you. He says nothing, but after a long silence, he asks, do we grow or do we hold? You whisper, we survive. And survival now means something else. Not just seed, not just fire, but influence. The next day, the treaty is signed. Your son writes it. Your seal is pressed into the clay. Ashan's mark beside it, a circle split in two. The people cheer. The temple remains quiet. Soon, strange words echo in your streets. New tools appear in the markets. A dialect of dreams and plans. Children imitate Ashan's accent. Your scribes begin writing double. Your guards carry different blades. And you watch it all unfold, knowing the river now flows not just with water, but with ideas. Because sometimes the most dangerous thing in a city
is not the sword, or the God, or the hunger. It's the man who teaches you another way to speak.
It doesn't begin with a scream. It begins with a whisper. A cracked pot, a stolen bracelet, a merchant shouting that the scales are wrong again, and then another, and another. You tell yourself it's noise. Cities make noise. But this isn't noise. This is splintering. The stranger's tongue now echoes louder than your own. In the market, in the schoolhouse, even in the prayers. The priestess says nothing, but her eyes scan the temple steps as if expecting them to rise up and walk away. Your son records everything, every complaint, every dispute, every new law Ashan suggests, and there are many. One day he brings you a tablet written in both languages. You run your fingers across it. It's smooth, too smooth. This is not clay from here, you say. Your son nods. They bring it from Eshentel. You say nothing, but your chest tightens. Even the tablets now come from elsewhere. Soon, old farmers complain they don't recognize the new calendar. The temple dancers wear northern feathers. Children forget the names of your stars. And then the wall cracks. Not metaphorically, literally. The northwestern corner, once thick with heat-dried bricks, buckles under weight. No rain, no quake, just too much added, too fast. The people panic. They look to the temple. The priestess emerges, but she doesn't speak, because she knows what they fear isn't the crack itself. It's what it means. You gather the council. Ashan is there. So are the new merchants, the younger priests, the ones with double names. You ask, is this still our city? They don't answer. Not really. Ashan says, it is a greater city now. It contains yours and more. You look to your son. He does not look back, just writes. Later that night, a fire breaks out near the southern granaries. No one knows how, but it spreads, too fast. By morning, 3 storehouses are ash, and the old irrigation maps gone. Blame is tossed like dice. Foreign tools sparked it. Temple incense burned too hot. A drunk boy, a lantern. But in truth, no one knows. And that is worse. Because without reason, fear is free to choose its own face. The market erupts days later. A fight over dried figs becomes a riot over grain weight, becomes a question of language, becomes a stab. Then another. The guards are split. Some follow your edicts, some follow Ashan's, and others wait to see who wins. The priestess locks the temple gates. The chants stop, and in their absence, the silence is deafening. You walk the streets, no longer as a leader, not even as a father, just a shadow. Watching a thing you once built forget your hands entirely. Your son comes to you with red eyes. He says, I don't know what to write anymore. You take his hand. It trembles. And you say, then write this. We tried. Because not every collapse is fire. Some are soft, slow, a gentle forgetting, a slow undoing, a city not destroyed, but absorbed, into something larger and colder.
You leave before sunrise. No one notices. No crowd, no procession. Just wind and ash curling around your ankles as if even the dust is unsure whether to follow. You carry nothing but a satchel. Inside, a tablet, the first one, the one with the bread and the boy and the line. If a man steals from need, he repays double, but shall not bleed. It is heavy, not because of weight, but because you remember who you were when you wrote it. You walk for days. Your legs ache. Your thoughts don't. They're quiet now, like a field no longer sown. Eventually, you find a tree, not sacred, not marked, just tall, alone. You sit, you breathe, and you press the tablet into the earth, slowly, until the clay meets soil, until no one would find it unless they were digging for something else. You whisper, "Forget my name, but remember this," and then you leave. Years pass, decades, centuries. The temple collapses. The god is replaced. The tongue of the stranger becomes the native one. But the tablet remains, buried, whole. One day, long after even your name is dust, someone digging for a foundation finds a square of clay with ridges like the lines of a face. They do not know what it says, but they know it is old. And that is enough to place it in a box of glass. And there, in silence, you speak again, not to your people, not to your God, but to someone centuries ahead, brows furrowed, finger tracing the grooves, mouth slowly forming a sentence in a language that hasn't been spoken since the last time you wept. And maybe they'll wonder who wrote it, and why. And maybe they'll carry it forward. Not the power, not the walls, not the temple, just one idea. If a man steals from need, he repays double, but shall not bleed.
The air smells of disinfectant and humidity. Somewhere, a child presses their nose to the glass. A museum. Late afternoon. Muted chatter. Footsteps like whispers on linoleum. The exhibit is called Voices from the Earth, Tablets of the Forgotten Cities. No one looks for long. Most pause at the larger fragments. The kings, the wars, the names. But in a small corner, beneath a flickering LED light, there is a square of clay. Cracked, unimpressive, just lines pressed by hand. A young woman stands before it. Her name is Dr. Layla Semet, linguist, tired, 4 years into her postdoc, 3 months behind on her rent. Pause. She leans in. The ridges don't mean much, not yet. But something about the pattern feels personal, like breath caught in mud. She takes a photo, doesn't know why. Pause. Weeks later, she deciphers a line, then two. And one night, beneath the hum of her desk lamp, she reads it aloud. If a man steals from need, he repays double, but shall not bleed. Pause. She stares at the words, doesn't blink, doesn't smile, just whispers, "Who were you?" Pause. And somewhere, beneath a sky that has long forgotten your name, a wind moves dust across the desert. And in that hush, in that breath between memory and silence, you speak again. Not as a king, not as a god, but as something harder to kill. A voice carved in mud, a sentence that outlived its city, a law that never needed a throne.